All right, welcome to Around the Valley. Today we have some special guests. It's a special show. We have a little baby in the recording studio. Guests, would you like to introduce yourselves and tell us who you represent?
Hi, good morning. My name is Carribean Fragoza. I'm the co-director of the South El Monte Arts Posse.
I'm Romeo Guzman, and we direct South El Monte Arts Posse together.
And this is Aura. This is our baby. She's part of our South El Monte Arts Posse since before birth.
Cute. How old is she?
She just turned a year.
Oh,
yeah.
She's looking at us.
She's so cute.
So my first question is, you said South El Monte
Arts Posse.
So what is that?
So the South El Monte Arts Posse, it's an arts collective based out of South El Monte because I grew up in South El Monte. But it reaches out to El Monte, of course, because South El Monte and El Monte, I think of them as being Siamese twins. We're attached.
Yeah, it's so true. It's funny because I feel like, because I'm from San Gabriel, Lucia's from Baldwin Park, Art is from Pasadena / Rosemead, but the El Monte South El Monte relationship is very interesting because on the one hand, they're completely different cities and they like to be thought of as such. And on the other hand, they have a lot of shared components, like Chamber of Commerce. It's the only one I know of that has two together, So anyways, go ahead. Tell us about, what kind of activities you guys do
Yeah. So we also reach out to the San Gabriel Valley, and even beyond.
Yeah, so we're basically an arts collective, and our main focus is space. So we're really interested in creating projects that rethink how we use and how we think about space. So, for example, the current project that we're working on is called Activate Vacant, and we're inviting artists to do something on a vacant lot, preferably using discarded objects.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, so we started off with Ay Corazon, which is a poem installation that Carribean did, and she can probably tell you a little bit more about what that looked like.
So, working off the idea that we want to activate vacant lots, which are kind of dead spaces or muted spaces that kind of sit around in the community just inactively. I wanted to activate a particular vacant lot on Santa Anita near the 60 freeway, right by the Ramada. And it's a huge vacant lot with a big green tarp that just kind of mutes that part of the street. And I decided I wanted to do a 2-word poem installation made out of plastic bags and wire, and it says Ay Corazon, which is just like Ay Corazon. You hear it in all these Mexican songs, and it's totally mushy expression of affection. And I wanted it to be made out of plastic bags because I wanted to use discarded items. And I didn't want to damage the property because I didn't want people to confuse it with graffiti. Although I'm a big fan of graffiti. I love it. And I made it in the cursive kind of handwriting style so that it looks like almost like part of a love letter. And the idea was that commuters on the street on their way to work or back home in the afternoon would see this poem and think of their corazon back home, whether it's, ay corazon, I'm so frustrated with you because you lost the keys in the morning and I'm late to work, or like, ay corazon, I'm going to miss you when I'm away. So that was sort of like the basic idea. And again, it was the main idea is to activate the space that is usually blank or invisible.
Got it. Oh, that's cool. Lucia, it sounds like you're into it. What are you thinking?
Well, I just think that's a really cool idea, and the whole concept around it is really awesome.
Yeah, it's funny because there are so many empty pockets, for a place, and this is all the San Gabriel Valley, but specifically El Monte, South El Monte, San Gabriel, I've noticed Rosemead. Mm-hmm. We live in this area that was developed in the 50s where some of the lots are very big, but they're too small for modern day standards of, Best Buy and Walmart and all these things. And so a lot of these places just sit empty.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm always thinking about is, I know there's this group called Guerrilla Gardening, and it's in Hollywood, I think, and they go to these kind of abandoned places and just, throw a whole bunch of flowers in there or, whatever kind of plants. And so you transform an empty space.
Oh. This area that you're talking about that you're using, you do this with the...
One second, Art. Just...
Sorry. I was wondering what you were doing, the guy there. Bye-bye, audience. Is this actually an abandoned property that you're doing this on, or do you have the permission of a property owner to put this artwork up? How does that work?
It's a property that's been vacant for years now. Across the street, there's another property, a big, it used to be a nursery, and that was vacated years ago also. And there had been plans to develop some sort of shopping center, and they even put up a big sign, coming soon, this shopping center. The community was somewhat excited about it or had mixed feelings about it, about what should be developed on this property. And then eventually the sign was just taken down, and then there was nothing, no future plans at all. So both of these properties have been vacant, and they belong to somebody, we don't know who, and so we just took it upon ourselves to put our installation on there without permission.
Oh, so whoever the registered property owner is of the county tax records, you can't even find them.
Can't even find the
actual owner of the
right.
The
so
property.
That's one of the challenges to figure out who is even the owner, and who can we even ask for permission.
Yeah, how do you go about doing that, Art? You were saying you have to go through the county or something, or are you familiar with that process?
You can go down to the county assessor's office in I believe it's Cerritos, and they have all the property tax records there, and you can look up who is the legal owner of the property. But if it turns out to be something, say, like LHC Partners with an address that's not valid anymore, and they haven't paid their property taxes for 7 years, what are you going to do with them?
Yeah. Is it free to figure out who owns properties? Or do you have to pay?
Sure, just go down and stick your nose in the records.
Nice. That sounds interesting.
How do you think you get on everybody's mailing list for various purposes? They go down, they take the property owner records, and they sell them. There are commercial people
that
that
makes
do that.
sense. That's great.
That's where you get your junk mail.
So tell us more about your group. Is it a group? Is it a nonprofit? Is it a foundation? Is it kind of in the beginning steps? Have you existed for a while?
It's in the beginning steps. We've officially been the South Omani Arts Posse for about a year. We had our first art exhibit last year, photo art project.
Where was that?
That was in El Monte. We had an art exhibition installed in our front yard. We were living on Tyler at the time, literally right next to the public library. And so we decided to install this photo exhibit on one of the nights when they have those big community concerts. And so we got a lot of foot traffic coming and going to that concert. And so people were just kind of stunned that we would have a photo exhibit out in our driveway or out on the street.
That is such a wild idea. It's so great.
Yeah, and we want people to start, in this community in particular, in El Monte and South El Monte, to start getting used to seeing art. It's an experience that if you don't live near a gallery or in a community that's somewhat affluent or has access to the arts, you're completely left out of that experience of looking at art, interacting with art, even making art. And we have so many artistically, creatively inclined people in this community that are without access to the arts, in my opinion, or so that was my experience growing up as, a young creative person, that I didn't know how to access the arts.
Yeah, I completely agree. I grew up in this area and I moved to New York City for 2 years. And the first time I went to kind of like the galleries out there, I didn't know if it was a museum and I didn't have to pay or what. Like, I was really confused because I just never been to really a section with art galleries where you could just walk in, check out all this art for free and leave.
Yeah.
And it definitely is something that as soon as you're exposed to it, it's a wonderful thing. It's almost like, nowadays you can get a lot of access to visual representations with Facebook or different social media things. But looking at art in real life, especially when you see the texture, it's just completely different. And, we have some great jewels close by, like the Huntington Library, like the Norton Simon Museum. But unless you've gone there, you don't know about them, and, do we have any art museums in this area? Do you know, like San Gabriel, El Monte, Rosemead?
I think there's one place that comes to mind is a small gallery in Alhambra on Main Street.
Oh, right, Nucleus, right?
Yeah, Nucleus. That's the one that comes to mind. But other than that, I'm really having a hard time thinking of it. And the other thing that's been happening lately that I've noticed is these small art walks that have been sprouting out all over the place in Covina and La Puente. Pomona has had a very healthy art walk for years now. And of course, there's the downtown art walk in downtown Los Angeles that is, great and fabulous and big, but, it's out there.
The youth group at the Evergreen Baptist Church has had a graffiti display that they kids, if they've done certain things, they are allowed to put their own artwork up and display it for a period of time, then they take it down. It's on temporary materials, I guess. Mm-hmm. And that is something we've talked about at Rosemead Connections.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's cool. Yeah, I know San Gabriel has a like a fine arts, not a council, but a group right next to the mission where they teach like painting and stuff. But a lot of that is kind of, from at least just my outside perspective, it looks kind of like older, wealthier, if you can afford acrylic paint. That's kind of the problem with a lot of art. I mean, even in college, I never got to take an art class because, just the materials alone will set you back, a few hundred.
It's really expensive.
Yeah.
Well, now, part of the series that they have at the Rosemead Public Library is called Art Activity for Kids. This is Saturdays at 2 o'clock, and looking here at the schedule for July and August, it appears to be a weekly activity that is there. Now, that is for, smaller children. This is not for young adults, but this is where the kids can be very expressive, and that's free of charge to any parent that wants to bring their kids there.
Yeah, that's great. So in addition to exploring the traditional art forms such as painting and drawing, which we're interested in, and photography, which is what we did last year, we're also very interested, particularly for this Activate Vacant project, in creating installations, performances, site-specific work that instead of hanging in a gallery space, we wanted to live in the community. So in a way, we want to transform the community into some kind of fertile ground of creativity. So the vacant lot is in a way a gallery space that we're working with. So we want to think about where we live and the walls that surround us here and the spaces in a different kind of way. And we want to create, we kind of want to push the limits of what art is. So for example, Corazon is made out of wire and plastic bags that I took from my mom's house and my neighbor's house. That's kind of different from your traditional painting and drawing. It's like a sculptural piece. We really want to push the limits of that as well.
Yeah, I just think it's wonderful to have art coming from people within that community. It's just wonderful because, it means something more when it comes from people from that space, because you're tapping into things that, other people can't. I think even though we're all from different cities, I think there's kind of a sameness from people from the San Gabriel Valley that I pick up on that I don't necessarily feel even in other parts of LA, let alone other places in the U.S. or the world. So it's nice to kind of have, something like you're doing in a space like this to kind of share it and get to know each other. And, are you tied to the New Vein Foundation at all?
We are definitely friends of the New Vein Foundation, and they've actually invited us to participate in the La Puente Artwalk on August 18th. So we're going to be part of that. We're going to exhibit part of our Activate Vacant project in Coco Nadre Cafe.
Okay, I've been there. That's a really nice place.
It's a really cute cafe. We really love it. So, again, another community that's just kind of out there, and they seem ripe and excited to start their own art scene over there.
Yeah, I it's funny. We were talking about this a little bit earlier today. Is just the idea of community. A lot of people who've never had a community, and granted, we all have different forms of community with friendships and clubs and whatnot. But as far as a city community, certain cities like I think Monrovia, Arcadia, Temple City's really doing a good job lately. They create these events, and actually El Monte's kind of been on the up and up. They've had some sleepovers in the parks and different things for activity. But it's something you have to learn to appreciate if you've never grown up with it. Because an example I always like to tell is I lived in Humboldt County for a little bit, which is kind of famous for hippies and whatnot in Northern California. But one of the things they do is every Sunday they have a farmer's market, and the city owns hula hoops. And they'll throw out the hula hoops in like the center square, and the city will pay for a band to come every Sunday during, the season. And people just pick up the hula hoops and start hula hooping them. And it sounds so crazy, but it's so fun to watch, because when you imagine people walking down the street in El Monte, you just never know who the person is that's actually going to pick it up and start hula hooping, you know? And I know they've done the similar things recently with pianos. Have you seen the traveling pianos?
Yeah, about the pianos.
That's kind of fun, stuff like that.
Yeah, and it also kind of breaks up our expectations of each other and, again, how you use the space, because the South Amani Arts Posse is really interested in how we use space and how we don't use it. We want to break up those expectations of, how you use space. How do you walk? What do you do with the street? Do you walk on it? I mean, this is,
Right.
Is it okay to bike ride down the street? Is it not? I mean, what do you do with this vacant lot? Is it okay to trespass or not? And
I'm always amazed that there are so many vacant lots in this area because we're so close to LA and people are just, constructed ear to ear when you get to cities, further east of us. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that's because of the distance or because of the size or what. What do you think?
Well, part of it has to do with the limitations imposed by your zoning ordinances. When you develop an area with a building, you also have to have so many parking spaces associated with that. And if you associate the parking spaces, now you don't have room for the building.
Yeah, that's
so
actually
unless you
true.
have a sufficient area adjacent, the area just sits vacant. I'm on the Surplus Property Utilization Committee for the Garvey School District, and we've got some small plots of land where we could, in theory, build a house or something, but the problem is, because of the various regulations, you can't have a house that's big enough to be usable. It would have to be just a little one-bedroom place in order to have enough area for the parking. And so you've got these vacant plots of land on the periphery of a school campus that the school doesn't want, the neighborhood doesn't want, and the city is now just having to plant some grass and mow the lawn.
Yeah.
It might be a good place to put some of your vacant land use.
And if you ask a gardener, I mean, we've had so many community gardeners and farmers sprout out all over the place, all over LA County. If you ask them, they'll say, oh, I have some squash that I can grow there. I mean, they always want to grow wherever they can.
Yeah, the space that you described earlier by the Ramada Inn, we were talking about earlier because Mid-Valley News, we did a story on the organic garden that's right there. Have you been to that?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Or the farm. Yeah, it's really cool. Have you bought any vegetables from there?
I haven't purchased them. They've been given to me. I've ridden my bike. I just kind of rode my bike once, and I was like, oh, what's going on here? And the girl that was there was like, hey, do you want some squash? And I'm like, hey, yeah, I want some squash.
That's cool. Lucia, you're being kind of quiet. What are you thinking?
Oh no, it is true. It's South Amani does have a lot of vacant lots. I don't see it as much in Amani. I see it more in South Amani. But I just think South Amani is more. Is it because it's more of like an industrial area? I see a lot of industrial buildings. I think recently they finished a. I forget if it's on Rush or I forget which street they built. I think it was going to be like a subway or they were going to build something, and I was surprised because all those places are.
Oh yeah, empty. South Amani's been feeling special because they got, what did they get? They got a Marshall's.
Oh yeah, and that one.
And they got a couple little things by Superior Market. They developed like this little part of the strip mall. South Amani is really like an odd and interesting space because it is mixed residential and industrial. Yeah. And I grew up in that, and I always felt kind of odd about it because you could live literally right next to a factory or a warehouse that sells shoes. So what kind of community? It just creates an odd sense of community when you live sandwiched between like two factories, or in some cases it's been known you could potentially live right next to a sweatshop. It has been known that there have been sweatshops in South Amani, and you sometimes don't know really what you're living next to. So, growing up with all these different sensibilities about what South Amani is, and all of that has really informed my vision of what is now the South Amani Arts Posse. And I always dreamt of having some sort of arts collective for years and years. And then finally, with Romeo, my partner, we just got it going last year. We started it up.
We now have our 1-year-old guest back. She has a big smile and seems to be much, much more content.
Hey, so we just been talking about the different things that you guys have going on, and just chit-chatting. Is there anything specific you wanted to make sure that we talk about, or?
Maybe you didn't cover it, but I think what's really cool about the Arts Collective is that we have people that bring a wide variety of skill sets and skill levels. So, for example, the person who made the logo for Activate Vacant has always really been into music and font, but is just now going back to school and is taking class at Santa Monica Community College. So he hasn't been doing graphic design for a long time. So I think it's a semester or two. And so he made the logo, and then so we have like that spectrum. And then we have someone who has a MFA from Cal Arts, right, doing a project. And then for Active Vacant, we have someone who has a community org and they've had it for a long time, and they've sort of been doing arts for like 20 years, right? So we have this sort of wide spectrum of people. And then we have some folks who have no skill, no particular skill, but are very creative folks, right? So we try to combine a lot of these different people together to create something.
Mm-hmm. I think that's wonderful. You know, one of the things that I think we all share is that we love this area. But one of the unfortunate things about the San Gabriel Valley is sometimes it's hard to find a job here or to use the skills that you have in your area, and you have to take them to downtown or the west side, or you know. So I think that's wonderful that people can either already have a skill and utilize that, or maybe learn from a skill, or just, you know, completely untrained but completely talented and have a way to use what they want to share.
Several of the people that are participating in the Activate Vacant have some sort of personal connection to South El Monte or the San Gabriel Valley, and for whatever reason they're looking for jobs, or they had to go away for school, had to leave the community, but always wanted to come back and do something.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the other thing about the San Gabriel Valley is we have some of the fastest changing cities, you know, in all of Southern California, and that's been recently documented by USC. And so you kind of have this, you know, people here who have roots here forever, you know, and then because at least in San Gabriel we have like Tongva Indians still that, you know, run their organizations, and then you have just turnover. You know, I know San Gabriel, for example, had a huge influx of Italians, and we had a huge flux of ethnically Chinese people from Vietnam, and then, you know, that's built on the suburbs, which is built on, you know, the Spanish history, but it's always changing, and it's always rooted, and I think it's interesting for traditions and art, and, you know.
And one of the things that we're really interested in, and we haven't done a good job of it, but is trying to create projects that really speak to and bridge this sort of Asian, Mexican, Latino divide, right?
Yeah.
So one of the really interesting things for us is that on Tyler, right across from the museum, there's that little park where the summer concerts are. And I think every Wednesday and Friday, or Wednesday and Saturday, these older men do Tai Chi, right? And the sort of Latino community, the Mexicans walk around and they sort of just walk, but they stare and they look and they're really fascinated, right? But there's something that doesn't allow them to communicate, right? So I think there are these cultural practices or moments that I think, you know, provide for good intervention to sort of start to bridge and create a dialogue.
Oh yeah, I think that's a wonderful idea. You know, one of the things I've been trying to start up conversations with either cities or libraries is just language tables. I mean, we're probably some of the most diverse cities in the world, and there's lots of people who are retired. You know, and if you say, hey, at this place, at this time, once a week, you can practice Spanish, you can practice Mandarin, you can practice English, you know, and I think that's another way to build bridges is just sitting down and talking to people, you know, and things like concerts and things like art that bridge language gaps can be the first step, I think, in understanding other cultures, you know, so I think that's a great idea.
Oh, that's true, because, like, for example, me, I actually took a Tai Chi class, and it's pretty cool. Like, you get to see, like, the not only just to see it as, like, exercise, you see it as part of the culture, you know, the Asian culture. And, yeah, just the art, how you were saying, art and music does, like, bridge that gap. And, you know, people can come together, you know, just for, you know, the love of it.
Yeah, and one of the things I think is interesting is just historically looking at these cultural ties. Well, I was fascinated to learn that, you know, the Philippines and Mexico has had a trade route since, you know, the 1500s, and, you know, all the oranges before they came from Brazil came from China, you know, so every orange in the mission was pretty much from the Asian area. And another good example is pottery, you know, that kind of Chinese porcelain that's famous. You know, there have been rules for hundreds and hundreds of years about counterfeiting that because it was so popular to counterfeit it in Europe, and which later went to Mexico. And so we have these things that we think of as being new, but which they are. Some are new. You know, we have a lot of challenges. We're kind of the forefront of the world, as I think of the San Gabriel Valley, with kind of Asian, Western relations and Latin American. But at the same time, we have things that people have been dealing with forever. You know, here's a great example. The LA County Public Library, which isn't, the LA City Public Library, the one downtown. I don't know if you guys have ever been to it. It's beautiful. They have photos online, photo collection. If you Google El Monte, within that photo collection, you can see a Japanese festival from 1930. Where these guys are wearing really cool outfits, you know, and the Savannah Cemetery in El Monte, they have Japanese tombstones, you know, from like that same time period.
The Savannah Cemetery, by the way, is going to be having a mural up on the backside of the Moose Lodge that the Cemetery Association is trying to get going now that they have state historical site status. and it is going to be depicting the end of the Santa Fe Trail in the early days here of the people coming from the south into the Savannah, Lexington area of the San Gabriel Valley before the Civil War. Then they changed the name later on because they wanted to be associated with the Union. But El Monte started out as Lexington, Rosemead was Savannah.
Yeah.
People have forgotten this.
Yeah.
But we have a Lexington Masonic Lodge. We have a Savannah Elementary School. The names are still there. But what is the history and the culture behind it? Why is Graves Street called Graves? Why is Hellman called Hellman?
Right.
They're named after two men who had a great deal to do with the development of the San Gabriel Valley. We can get into that sometime.
Yeah. Well, do you guys have a way that people can get in contact with you?
We have a Facebook, and then we have a Tumblr and a WordPress, and they're both Sem Arts Posse at WordPress, Sem Arts Posse at Tumblr, and we're also on Twitter.
Sem Marks, you said Posse?
It's Sem Arts, SEM Arts Posse at WordPress, and then Tumblr. But the easiest way is just to find us on Facebook.
Yeah.
At Southern Monte Arts Posse.
Great.
Yeah.
So what do you guys have coming up?
Well, we have, we're going to be showing Ay Corazon August 18th for the La Puente Artwalk, and I don't know if Carribean mentioned one of the things that maybe we didn't expect. We knew it was going to be taken down. We didn't know how soon. But one of the things that we didn't expect was that the community was going to be so invested in its trajectory. So folks took pictures of it. So we have one person who rode his bike from Whittier and photographed it at night. We have someone else who took a picture on their way back from a case to El Monte. We have someone else who photographed it the day after. We have someone else who photographed it while it was being sort of torn. So what we're going to actually show in La Puente is sort of the life trajectory or short life history of Ay Corazon using the different photographs, text, and messages that people put up on Facebook or email to us.
That's cool. I actually saw it on Facebook, so that's really cool.
So one of the really great things about the comments that people made was that the debate wasn't about whether we have a right to put something up. The debate became, if what you put up makes the place look better, then it shouldn't be taken down. And I think one of the comments was something like, it's not cool to mess with art, or, you know, it's just this, you know, very sort of simple statement, right? But
it starts the interest of people being involved, especially young people being involved in local city things, you know, because I know personally I never really knew much about city council until I was mad about something. And then you say, who can I complain to, right? And then you start learning about city council and you learn about different groups and how to be involved and the history of things. So even from that standpoint, I think it's important and good.
Yeah, and I think everyone has an idea about what to do with the vacant lot, right? I think what we want to do is we want to sort of use art to create those conversations. I personally don't want to go sit in a meeting at City Hall. And I think most people don't, right? But I think most people do have something to say. So the question is can we provide a vehicle and a means to get that out there?
Right, exactly. And also you build community. You know, some people actually do like that stuff. You just got to find that person to be a part of your group, and everyone brings something different to the table.
Yeah. And for Corazon, we sort of posted it on Facebook, like, you know, as an event, like it's going to go up, and we didn't expect people to show up, but, you know, someone, Alice Strong, showed up who lives around there, a girl named Rocio, who's been following us, but we had never met her before.
Cool.
So a bunch of people showed up, and it sort of did build this sort of small little event that wasn't planned.
So it was really great having you guys. Just, again, give us the name, give us the way to contact you, and we'll go from there.
So we're the South Del Monte Arts Posse, and you can find us on Facebook at South Del Monte Arts Posse. We also have a WordPress and a Tumblr. And it's just, Sem Arts Posse, SEM Arts Posse at Tumblr, and at WordPress, so the same thing, semartsposse.wordpress.com.
Cool, and we'll put a link up on our blog and our YouTube video and stuff. Did you want to sign off as well?
Yeah, that pretty much covers it. Again, my name is Carribean Fragoza, and I just hope that people will look out in their local their local vacant lot and see what kinds of projects might sprout out, and hopefully be surprised and inspired by them.
That's great. Art, any final comments?
Just that we do have arts things available in Rosemead. I've talked about the Rosemead Library series. You can see that on our website, rosemeadkiwanis.org, in the Community Affairs section.
Okay, Baldwin Park also has these types of events going on. You can visit www.ballpark.org baldwinpark.com. And I also wanted to mention that I believe it's this Saturday is the 626 night market. Just want to make sure.
Yeah, that's a good point. You guys should get involved in that. 20,000 people showed up last time. It's a night market in Pasadena, and a big part of it is art and culture. So, thanks for joining us, you guys. It sounds like a really great group, and it's always nice to get involved in the city side of it, but I think private groups, we all agree, are a nice way with a little more flexibility and, just starting discussions that maybe people don't think about and changing perspectives. So thanks for joining us on Around the Valley, and we'll be in contact. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.